I'll be like one of these BreadTube channels and just say, this is a brief warning. There's a lot of autism here. There's going to be a lot of autism, a lot of just LARPing cringe stuff. So just bear with me with this one. Just to say, you know, I normally wouldn't do this, but with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it, man. Okay? All right. Okay, well, let's not dilly-dally around too much. We'll just go ahead and get into this. So, how I'm going to lay out my plan. I'm going to try to be fairly simple and fairly blunt about it, but how balkanization is going to save the United States. And to me, it's fairly simple. The thing is that nowadays, of course, in 2020, we see all these folks talking about, well, you know, we see how evil Thomas Jefferson is and how bad George Washington is and how bad, you know, the South was and all this, and that the United States was built on white supremacy and slavery. The only thing really that you can really do is let these folks have their way. Now this is a bit of cope, but I think that it's the truth. Because in reality, we know that the Antifa folks and the the folks that are protesting right now, they are not our friends. But neither are the police and neither are the military. And I think that what we should do is we should play the long game. And the long game is allowing these folks to a point to take over. And like I said, this is going to be cope. We have to allow these folks who really think that they are going to make a better society to let them try. And to see how long it will take before their authoritarianism turns bad. I think that this is the only real way, because it's simply a lack of support. And this is something that, even in the videos that I was reviewing and responding to, they said that, white nationalism was never a well-liked idea, this and that type of thing. And I think I think that a lot of people have said this, but it's going to have to get worse. And worse to me, ultimately, is the United States, and maybe this is a bit accelerationist, and maybe this is just a bit, I don't know, coping and autism and everything. But I think that's the only real answer, is you have to let them show them. They have to, ultimately right now, maybe Vosh does have a point where, all these people support BLM. They all support, these various groups and everything. They support, defunding the police and all that business. I don't think that he said that they support defunding the police necessarily, but, And I think ultimately you have to let these folks show their true colors. And show who are going to be the real winners of the new empire, Like I say, I will admit that, yeah, the United States is an empire, yeah. Now, of course, we are losing influence to China, of course. But to a point, I think that, dare I say it, is that maybe we need to let some of this happen just so that we can start over again. And I think that's what we need to learn a bit more from the history of Europe. Now, like I say, once again, I'm no history major. I'm a marketing major. And ultimately, I'm no expert on history. I'm a spurg. But the reality is this. Let's compare these few maps here and kind of see the differences between Europe in the 1600s, the 1800s, and now Europe today. Let's go ahead and take a look at those right quick and see the huge differences that have come about. Alright, and those weren't the best maps, but you know what? I don't really care. The thing is, I just wanted to use that as an illustration to say how much Spain has changed over time. and particularly, and why did I say Spain? I'm sorry. How much Europe has changed over time, and the 100 Years' War, or the 30 Years' War, and all these other things that have been established, and yet the nationalism still exists. Whether it's the idea of the Irish, being a collective, regardless of all the history and everything else, and yet they have been united in hatred of the British, and united in as one culture and one idea. Now, of course, culture, I think this is something that Julie was talking about as well. Culture comes from the strength and the power to defend those ideas. And I think that's very true. Maybe I'm taking him out of context, so excuse me. But I think that's really the idea that we need to think of. The United States, for the most part, apart from the Civil War and apart from skirmishes here and there in general, has been spared the amount of wars that have happened throughout most of the world, some of which, admittedly the United States caused, such as, or helped to be involved with, for example, the Indochina War, or the still going on Korean War, or whatever the case may be. These wars that unified people. Dare I say it, is that war has done far more to unify people than any sort of peaceful time. I mean, I think that the United States is a perfect example of that. The United States, of course, look at it now. We are in turmoil and everything else because we've had so much relative peace throughout our history. Domestically. Internationally, of course, but, I'm not going to go too anti-imperialist. It's kind of cringe. But in general, I will say, is domestically, we have never had huge amounts of, huge legitimate armies that will fight amongst each other. The United States had one idea, and, once we reached the Pacific and achieved manifest destiny, and, once we got hold of Hawaii and this and that, then, everything just kind of settled in, and eventually we had our strifes and struggles, but most of that went on behind the scenes, behind closed doors. And yeah, there were, don't get me wrong, once again, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but there were scuffles, between the Irish, the Italians, the Wasps, and natives and everything else. And I think nowadays we can see, and maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but I feel like we have to be realistic about what our history is and accept it for what it is. And I think that a lot of folks basically want to try to rewrite history and try to create America into, we need to hold on to the Constitution, this and that. I would be of a different opinion. You could try to hold on to parts of it, but I think as a whole document, no. I think that, we should definitely save the original document, but I feel like to a point, these are things that really don't mean much anymore. And I think the tribalism does exist, and people can say, oh, well, America is a multicultural country and this and that, oh, we have Indians and this and that. Yeah, but those Indians and these other groups are able to stay in their little enclaves and be able to take what they need from American society and go back and stay in their little bubbles. Same thing with the Chinese, same thing with Koreans. They are able to do that. And I think, unfortunately, what we need is another massive war to make people say, I gotta join you because, I want to be able to find my material needs met. I want my material needs met. I want to be able to get rice, I want to be able to get chicken, or whatever the case may be, And I think that is the point that we need to come to. That we cannot live by this idea that, we can make everything, we can just settle everything through voting and this and that. That's not going to mean anything. And once again, individual states are going to fight back on that. And I think that the time is right for that. The fruits of that sort of insurgency or warlike atmosphere is coming. It's just that a lot of folks are too afraid to go out on a massive scale. So far, it is just, a small group of people who want to, abolish the police or whatever the case may be. I keep on saying whatever. I really got to break myself of just repeating the same old phrases because I just want to fill in the time. Damn it. Okay, anyway, that's enough of my spurgery, but I really think that we have to have the ability to define ourselves in this new time. We cannot just say, oh, well, we're these, we're the same type of folks from 1776. No, we are not. We are not the folks that are here at the British Army surrender of Yorktown. We are not. We are not those same people. We are not. We have been integrated. We've all learned English. We all listen to hip hop or have at least heard of it. We all like our anime or uwu and all this other type of stuff. And we have been changed by that. Unlike a lot of countries at least can point to their history and say, yes, we remember this war and that war. The United States, we have a very ignorant view. And we would rather know about what, what's going on with Cardi B's new single, WAP. We would rather know about that than know about the history of our nation and learn about, Teddy Roosevelt or learn about these different folks who are now being censored, and are now being erased from history, including people like John Muir, who said some very racist things, and because of that, his name is being erased from the Sierra Club. And I think that should be put into context. And ultimately, someone will remember. And I think that we will be able to return to tradition. Dare I use that LARPy phrase? And I think, like I say, it's all going to depend on where you're at. But I think that ultimately, you will have to obey whatever that region's rules are going to be, But I think ultimately, a lot of these folks will fail. A lot of these, especially these progressive folks, who are like, well, we're going to get free healthcare, and we're going to get this and that. We're going to, we're going to have a, we're going to say, screw capitalism. Capitalism created races, this and that, which is ridiculous. It is ridiculous because those ideas have, if you think that, I think Vosh, of course, even argues against that idea. That capitalism created racism. No, that's nonsense. It helps to recreate it, maybe, but I think we need to be aware that the only way we can save ourselves is to let these folks, let the majority of people in this country see the truth of what these folks are about. Right now, they still have the edge where they're getting beat up by cops and they're being arrested. No, you even have people like Jason Unruh, Mr. Marxist-Leninist Maoist, defending these Portland protesters and saying, "Oh my gosh, it's so awful that they got arrested," and then they're released and they say that you can't, that we're gonna, all the United States government has done is arrest them. Let them free, and then before they release them, wag their fingers at them and say, "You better not protest anymore. You better not." If this was Maoist China, if this was, Leninist Soviet, the Leninist era of the Soviet Union, those folks would be killed. They would be killed. If this was Felix Dzerzhinsky, you'd be dead, my friend. People like Felix Dzerzhinsky said things like, the only reason that you are free is because we have failed, or something to that effect. And I think that needs to be put into perspective. And unfortunately, in the United States, we can just do our little protests and we can say our little things. And part of it is for clout. Some of it is, ultimately, it's just giving yourselves over to corporations. And like I say, this is just kind of a long rant sort of thing, but I think ultimately, Balkanization will show you the true face of your neighbors, and will show you the true face of what lies in the hearts, their true selves, of what lies in the hearts of these folks who claim to be Marxist-Leninists or claim to be anarchists, this and that. They will have to be authoritarian as well to get those things. And they can lie. And the same thing with this land back stuff. The thing is that they're talking about this land back stuff as if it's guaranteed. It's like, well, we're going to get the land back and we're just stewards of the land. You better fight for it then. But they don't talk about that, because they're not built that way. And simple as that. Dare I say it, but might makes right. I've never read that book, but I think that there is truth to that. And right now, the United States at least gives the image, the appearance that they have the might to hold back the American people. But I think that is going to be challenged more and more. Even the goofy folks up there in Portland think that they won against the feds. In reality, they ain't seen nothing yet. Once the gloves come off, because they're still playing with kid gloves. Once the kid gloves come off, and they start shooting protesters, then the shit is gonna be real. And then, when these anarchists finally, stop crying and they put they pull their, they take their skirts off and actually put on some pants, then we're gonna see some real shit. And then we're gonna see what they're really about. That they're just as authoritarian as the United States would be. The thing is, if nothing else, is that the example of Chop or just screw Chop. Chop is a perfect example of that. And while it was, vaguely, loose, and they said, well, we help the poor and all this type of thing. In reality, what happened with those two kids in the Jeep Cherokee? I mean, I know I keep repeating this. I've said it in about every one of these videos, but I'll just say it again. What'd they do? They shot him. No better than the cops. So it's just their form of authoritarianism. They're not against authoritarianism. They just want authoritarianism for their beliefs. Pure and simple. And I think ultimately, as I've said, I'm going to try to bring this back around here. I told you it was going to be autistic. But the reality is that to a point, we have to let them. And, the more that these autonomous zones come up, the more that these, why did I say occupying? Yeah. But the more that these types of folks take over certain areas, the more people will see what they are really about. And I think that's going to be the PR problem. Because once again, they can talk all day about, oh, well, the protest just lasted a couple days, this and that. And ultimately, we just want to help black folks, this and that. But once these different groups take over, then you will see the chaos that reigns and the fact that they are no better than the cops they claim to hate. And we have to let them hang themselves with the rope that they made for themselves. If they want to create and occupy, some autonomous zone where they're separate from the United States completely and they try to start all over, like Catalonia, this and that, let them. And I think, part of it, maybe this is some really, some 4D chess here, but maybe that's part of the reason why, Proud Boys and other folks aren't out there, because they want to let them embarrass themselves. And I think that's very important. Let these leftists be the only ones out there. Let them be the only ones out there. And the fact is, who is the only one that has killed a cop so far? Well, allegedly it was right-wingers that did, or at least, some, Wignat type of guy was the only one that actually killed a cop. You're supposed to be against the cops, right? But then you want to claim to be, non-violent, this and that. So we have to think about it in terms like that. Like I said, this is just a rant, honestly. It may not even go anywhere, but these are just my thoughts. What I just wanted to say, basically, is that we have to put up the mirror and decide these things. the thing is, I'll put it this way too. Same thing with the Spanish Revolution. I think this will be my last point, and then I'll cut it off. Is the right was all over the place. You had the Carlists, you had, just nationalists, and then you had the Phalangists. And then you had, and other Catholics and everything else. There were other groups as well. But in general, it wasn't until the anarchists started to take over villages and they started to shoot priests and dig up nuns and destroy Catholic churches and shoot police officers. It wasn't until then, and of course with support from the Soviet Union and Germany coming in, and that both of these folks realized, hey, this is what they're really about. And this is what we have to see. Ultimately, all they can do, all the lefties can do is squawk and say, well, they're painting us in a bad light. The fake news will never show us in the proper light. Well, the thing is that you're only going to show your side of it. But ultimately, there's only so much that you can do to try to defend it, And that ultimately the other side will come out, one way or another. So I say let more autonomous zones come up. And let all the footage come out. And then people can decide for themselves if it's a really good thing or if it's a really bad thing. Like I say, I think that's the only way that we can save America, is allowing Balkanization to happen and letting the United States military literally bend the knee, and watch these leftist groups get co-opted, because that's what will happen. And only then will eventually some people wake up and decide, this is not the America I thought it was. Because a lot of boomers are still holding on to that idea. And I think we have to show people that's not really what it is. Like I say, I think I've said my piece on that. This is just, like I say, I was going to do a video about Emily Gorczynski and all the ridiculousness that she does, but I think everyone knows that she's a Fed. And everyone, I say the word she loosely. He, of course, being the guy that was, famously crying at the statue, oh my gosh, they're going to come get us, let me see if I can, actually, let me see if I can find that footage. Hold on.
Bring back his head!
Where the fuck are the rest of you? Where the fuck are the rest of you? Where the fuck are the rest of you to defend against this? This is 20 people. This is 20 people.
We don't like what we don't.
Where the fuck are you? Where the fuck are you? When fascism came back, 40 people stood against hundreds. Where are you? There are no police. The police fucking abandoned us.
No fascist USA!
Our linked hands around the statue.
No KKK, no fascist USA!
The police abandoned us. They pulled out mace.
Fascist USA! No Nazis, no KKK, no
This is what we have.
No Nazis, no KKK!
They physically removed us from the statue. They physically removed us from the statue.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, I just wanted to show that bit. And where does Emily G live now? She lives in Berlin. And of course, she was hounded a lot by her lefty comrades because she claimed, and of course, she made these tweets back in like 2017. But she's like, "Oh, I help with with tracking for drones and stuff like that." And of course, there were people, of course, the Sims who were defending her, like, oh, well, no, it was just for the, it was for the Department of Agriculture or something like that, or whatever the case may be. But it's like, still, she worked with the federal government, and now she's continuing to work with these types of folks to track people. And of course, where does she go? Or where does he go? Goes to Berlin to hide out. Because of course, they want to fight fascism. And of course, they claim to be anarchists. These are the... Jesus wept, Anyway, but to finish up this long-ass rant, I figure I would just say is that I still have some faith and some hope that the United States can survive in some form. And I think it will. But it's going to take a lot of exposure. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, we're going to have to let these folks get into power. Or, to take power. To have these autonomous zones and to have these LARPers come out and show that they are no better than the people that they claim to fight against. And that's all, and I think that's all we can do, and for us to muster up forces and be able to retake this country. And of course, I'm not going to go too Wignatish. I'm going to keep it there. But I think that it's important to say these things, to allow these things to happen so that, we can retake it, and to show people they don't want to have, they don't want to go back to the authoritarianism that the leftists who claim to be for freedom and claim to be for egalitarianism, they don't want that. And we have to show them. There's a reason that, that hatred is already there. But I think that we just need to let it tap in even more by showing them. By showing people this is what they're truly about. And I think that's all we can hope for at the end of the day. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end this video and say I hope y'all have a blessed day or a blessed night or whatever time you're watching this. And I hope that my words have spurred you in a positive manner, and at least giving the idea that not everything is lost and that the spirit is still out there. You just have to look for it and you have to dig for it. And that's all we can really do at this point. And with that, I'm done.